Welcome to StantonMD. I'm board-certified emergency physician Dr. Ryan Stanton. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of the worst flu seasons in quite some time. The 2017-2018 flu season saw almost 1 in 10 Americans, per predictions by the CDC, coming down with the flu, and about 1 in 1,000 Americans requiring admission to the hospital. Unfortunately, as of the beginning of April, 142 children also died from the flu. The issue with the flu is not just the flu itself. The flu is a pulmonary illness that can cause pneumonia, causes fever, chills, muscle aches, headaches, makes people feel poorly for 5 to 7 days. The flu vaccine typically provides significant protection but is never perfect, and when it came to the most predominant strain this year, H3N2, it actually had decreased coverage compared to previous years, somewhere around 25 to 35% coverage or prevention. Now, that's not perfect, and it didn't completely prevent people getting the flu, but it did decrease the severity of the flu when they had the flu vaccine. The biggest complication and the biggest risk factor, which you'll hear about today in this episode, is the complications associated with other infections that can come along with the flu. Basically, the flu causes an infection but opens the door for other germs and bacteria in our environment. Today we'll hear about patients that had strep and MRSA, or a type of resistant staph infection. These are what we call superinfection or co-infections that can cause significant pneumonias and sepsis with the pneumonia. And this is most often the cause of the death and admissions associated with the flu. Every year, we see thousands of people getting the flu. A prediction from the CDC is about 10 to 35,000 people every single year will die from the flu. Every 4 or 5 years, we'll have a season that is worse than others, typically because the vaccine is not as effective as previous years. This year was one of those years, with numbers starting to peak in November and December, continuing to rise into January and throughout February. It wasn't until March that the numbers continued and started to drop until we actually got down to a plateau because of a rise in the flu B infections that were out there. This is one of the infections for the ages when it came to how it made people feel and the impact on our communities, emergency departments, and hospitals. And we'll talk about today the importance of being aware of the flu, being conscious of the flu, and getting that vaccine every single year. In this episode, we will talk with 2 patients who nearly died from the flu and associated complications. 2 women that entered late 2017 healthy and without a concern for the flu season. Unfortunately, they both experienced some of the worst that the infection has to offer when it's accompanied by a bacterial infection as well, resulting in pneumonia, sepsis, and thoughts by many that they weren't going to survive their admission. We start with Betty Montgomery. She was an otherwise healthy woman that became ill with the flu around Thanksgiving of 2017. Early in the flu season, she soon would be in the fight for her life.
I didn't really feel like I was too sick. I was down just for 2 days, but on that second day I felt really bad. Didn't really know. I had a really bad cough. Didn't want to get up and do anything. Just kind of laid in the bed, and I think that's what got me, and then I went to the ER. November the 16th was when I came into the ER. It was 9 o'clock at night. I came in. They did a chest x-ray on me, ended up, both of my lungs were full. Of course, I had laid in the bed for 2 days. My condition was really poor. I was really bad when I got there. I felt really horrible. I didn't even feel like getting dressed. The doctor said when I got there, I was very sick. Then I think at 3:30 I was septic and they intubated me. I ended up having MRSA in my sputum. I was intubated for 6 days. I came off on Thanksgiving Day. I didn't know I was in ICU until I woke up 6 days later. I remained in the ICU for a few more days, and then I came out onto the floor.
Betty's case was very complicated, with the influenza, which also opened the door for MRSA, which is a resistant bacteria that caused her sepsis and together resulted in her long hospital stay and complications. Betty notes that there are 6 days she can't even remember. but realized once she was awake again that this had not just been tough on her, but also her family and loved ones.
Well, when I woke up off of the ventilator, I didn't know I was on a ventilator. My children, were there. I guess my first, remembrance was, I put them through a lot. They were crying, and, I remember my son saying, Mom, your chest was just going up and down, and that was it. You didn't have any movement or anything. And I said, I promised them, that I would go to the doctor the next time, that I was sick. I promised them I wouldn't put them through that. So it just wasn't myself that was going through that. It was also my children and my family. And the doctor told me that, had I been a smoker, I wouldn't have been there. So being a non-smoker was what saved my life.
When we come back, we will talk with Krista and her family about her near-death flu experience. More StantonMD coming up. Stay with us.
It's always been my passion to become a professional caregiver, but as my priorities shifted, I had to find a way to better navigate my work-life balance. Luckily, LMU's online programs allow me the ability to work at my own pace to further my education and career. LMU provided me opportunities to push my career forward, to help my patients and my family. Advance your career at Lincoln Memorial University.
As a board-certified emergency physician, Dr. Stanton is a proud member of the American College of Emergency Physicians, also known as ACEP. ACEP provides physician and evidence-based patient resources at its consumer website, emergencycareforyou.org. That site has stories, fact sheets, and advice on a wide range of emergency topics. From visiting the ER to mom tips, you can find them on emergencycareforyou.org. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. We have already heard the statistics on this flu season in Betty Montgomery's story. We now talk with Krista Mitchell and members of her family. She was a healthy young woman, wife, and mother before she was impacted by the flu right after Christmas of 2017.
Nothing going on with me. I was perfectly healthy, 30-year-old woman. And what started all this, my mom had the flu and my niece, and I was helping her with her being sick, and then my niece holding her, and then the next day I woke up with the fever, the chills, and just not feeling myself. So I assumed it was the flu because my mom and my niece had it. I've been around them. I didn't go to the doctor because I figured I could just take Tylenol and get my fever down and just sleep it off, basically. Well, that was Tuesday, and I actually went on to work that day. I work at home and take phone calls. And Wednesday I did the same thing. But Thursday I woke up and was worse, and I had a temperature of 102 or 103, I'm not sure. So called and made a doctor's appointment, and they swabbed me, and I had the flu. And they checked for pneumonia that day. They did x-rays and said that there was no pneumonia. But they, did say the flu the flu culture did come back with the flu. So they gave me Tamiflu and a steroid pack and a steroid shot. So got all that, came home, feeling really bad, so I went to bed, stayed in bed basically till Saturday, and then woke up, couldn't hardly breathe, was hurting really bad in my back, and they took me to the hospital, and that's where everything else happened. They immediately took me back to the ER. I didn't have to wait at all. Took me immediately back there, and my O2 was in the low 70s, and they could not get it back up. And they ended up having to put me on the ventilator because of that. For me, because I had watched my mom go through it and my niece, I wasn't as scared because I saw them get super sick, but within a week, they were okay. And that's just what I assumed was going to happen to me. So I wasn't really scared about it. I just was ready for it to end because it was awful. That's the worst flu I'd ever had even before I had to go to the hospital. It was just the fever and the chills and everything. It was bad. But yeah, I wasn't scared yet because they were fine. So I didn't know to be scared, you know what I mean? I didn't realize.
Yeah, everything changed, when she first started getting sick, I didn't, she had the flu. We didn't think. We took her to the doctor, and then she got her medicine. A couple of days went by, she was still sick, still felt bad. And then Friday night, she was complaining about her back hurting, so, I asked her if she needed to go to the hospital or anything. She didn't, she said, no, if I don't feel better tomorrow, we'll go to the hospital. And then the next morning, it woke me up because she was breathing so hard. She couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. I had to pack her to the car. I said, well, we're going to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital. I thought she had collapsed her lung by the way she was hurting so bad, just breathing. It ended up being the pneumonia, which it actually was pretty much collapsed because there was so much pneumonia in there. But, from being the way everything was before she got sick to now, it's night and day. It's completely different now.
At 2 o'clock the day that she went into the emergency room, she was sitting up in the bed talking to us. She was on the CPAP, I believe that's what it was called, CPAP, at that time, and they were going to admit her into CCU. At about 3 o'clock, they came in and moved her up, and within 2 or 3 hours, she was on life support. And, they weren't giving us much hope. In fact, they told us, if anybody wanted to see her, we needed to call the family in. And it was like that for the first week. We were up and down and up and down. We would get her kidneys stabled, and then her liver was starting to fail. It was just constant. Then we got the liver was getting better, and then we had to put her on dialysis, and she went through a 26-hour dialysis treatment. And then we were doing better on that for a while, and then we had to go back and go through 2 more dialysis treatments. They were just the 4 to 6 hour treatments. She had blood transfusions. And she was on the rotoprone bed. Every time we went in to see her, there was some new crisis. And of course, the doctors, told us that was the way it would be. And even after she came off the vent, she had a couple of nights where they had brought the vent back up because they thought they were going to put her back on. And it was just like a roller coaster, not knowing one day to the next if she was going to be with us.
I honestly didn't think she was going to make it. And then after the first few days, she made it through the first few days, and then everything started kind of, one thing would get better and then something else would happen, but eventually it got to where everything, I was just excited, really ecstatic that she was going to make it.
For about 2 weeks, many thought Krista wouldn't make it, leaving a young son and family, but finally a glimmer of hope.
I stayed at the hospital until January 15th. So until January the 15th, it was when I finally felt that she was out of danger. And she went in on December the 30th. So it took that long for us to feel that we weren't going to lose her, that there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
Once Krista started to turn the corner, she started to realize where she was and started to discover what had happened since going to the hospital.
Probably within 10 days of being there, because I was on the ventilator for 9 days. So it was probably the 10th day, I think, or 9th or 10th day I was there. When I first woke up, too, I didn't realize what was going on with my hands and feet. And when they came to change the dressings, I don't know. I really don't know how my initial response was, but I do know that I didn't want to watch them change the dressings on my hand. I don't know why, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't want any part of it. So they had to put a pillow up where I couldn't see it. And I don't know why I did that, but I guess I didn't want to accept it, maybe. What I remember was just all the tests I had ran, CT scans, x-rays about every single day. I had to see all these different doctors, the lung specialist, the foot specialist, the hands. So I just dealing with that. And then, like I said, all the breathing treatments and medicines and things, and they had to do this thing where they would stick it down my throat and try to get up all the junk out of my lungs. So things like that, that's what I remember.
Since her admission to the hospital and rehab facility, Krista has been home, continuing her care and adjusting to her new reality and future.
I'm still trying to adjust being home because we have the split level home, so it's a lot harder for me than we thought. But all the main stuff's up here. I don't have to go downstairs. But to leave, to go to doctor's appointments, I have to go up and down the steps. So I can walk. It's just really hard for me to walk right now. I've been going to a lot of doctor's appointments, probably twice a week. So just all of that, just adapting to being at home and all of these changes with my hand and my feet, and just having the one hand. It's taken a lot. It's taken a while to get used to that. Amputation of my fingers and all my toes. So that's for sure. Don't really know as far as like the blood pressure medicines I'm on. I don't know if I'm gonna have to take those full term or for a long time. I really don't know about that.
I think that she's going to fight through it like she did to get well. We told her there's only 2 ways out of the hospital, and she chose to fight and come out on this side.
I'm with it where my whole life has changed, and I have to change everything. But my biggest thing is I'm alive. They say that I shouldn't be, but I am. So I do. I was trying to think how to. So I'm very happy to be alive, but at the same time, it is hard to deal with everything. But my family has been great. I mean, they help with everything. So it's I have to have help for food to get. I can't even open a canned drink by myself yet. You know what I mean? And bathroom, have to have help, showers. So it's hard because I have to have all of that done. Help. And when I went to the hospital, I didn't. I was completely independent. But it's getting better. I'm starting to do more by myself. But as far as the walking and the therapy, I'm having a lot of issues with my feet right now. But I can do it. It just hurts a lot.
And this situation has brought the family together and refocused them on their priorities and life moving forward.
The family has rallied around, her husband's family, our family. We've all come together as one. We come and help Jody as much as we can. We help with the dressing changes. We help take her to the doctor. Her mother-in-law stays with her at night when Jody has to go back to work. We've all just rallied around her and became just one big family in the community. Her community here, and she's originally from Anderson County, the Anderson County community. Everybody has just rallied around her. I think we all tend to lose our faith, and not really lose our faith, but we put our faith on the back burner. And when you go through something like this, all of a sudden, your faith is what's number one again. Krista had never been baptized, and that was a big thing that we were worried about. So a local minister came to the hospital while she was on the ventilator and baptized her for us. So your priorities change. You realize, that. Going to a ball game is a lot more important now because, if I miss one, it's not a big deal, but it might have been your last one. The last time that you would get to see your son play. Like she said, she didn't get to tell her son anything before she went on the ventilator. But now that she's alive, there was one, I think we all took for granted that there was going to be tomorrow. And now we don't. We just tell everybody, how we feel and share, how much we love people, and because we're not guaranteed tomorrow now. And it took something like this to make us really realize that.
Krista faces many challenges ahead, but she and her family are determined to make the most of the situation and return as much as possible to a normal life. Coming up, we will give you some tips for future flu seasons and how you can keep yourself and family safe.
It's always been my passion to become a professional caregiver, but as my priorities shifted, I had to find a way to better navigate my work-life balance. Luckily, LMU's online programs allow me the ability to work at my own pace to further my education and career. LMU provided me opportunities to push my career forward, to help my patients, and my family. Advance your career at Lincoln Memorial University.
Do you own or work for a business that advances health and safety of the public or its employees? Then you may be interested in becoming a sponsor of StantonMD. There are various opportunities from the show to the website, social media, print, or a combination. For more information on becoming part of StantonMD, contact the show at info@StantonMD.com. That's info@StantonMD.com. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. Neither Betty nor Christy got the flu vaccine this year. It may not have prevented what they went through, but even with overall poor coverage, it likely would have decreased the risk for the flu and complications. In fact, for the 2017-2018 flu season, only about 45% of all eligible people got the vaccine, and among children, an estimated 75 to 80% of the deaths were among unvaccinated children. Betty tells us that this experience has changed her viewpoint on the vaccine in the future.
I had not gotten the flu shot, but they gave me a flu shot before I left the hospital. And yes, I will get a flu shot every year from now on because I definitely do not want the flu. I mean, I have had the flu before, but it definitely wasn't this bad. You know, you never really think, you know, having the flu would ever put you in the hospital. But at this time, you know, it did. I mean, it landed me in the hospital in a rehab center for 30 days, which is quite impressive, thinking that, you know, if you know, you could have died, and I almost did. So you know, if you're sick or you feel like you're sick, definitely get yourself checked. It's not worth, you know, losing your family or anything like that.
Betty and Krista tell me they will never miss a flu vaccine again. The simple fact is that the flu vaccine is the only effective prevention for the seasonal flu. It's never perfect, with prevention ranging from about 30 to 60% in most seasons. This means that it prevents 30 to 60% of cases with relationship to those that didn't get the vaccine. The highest risk of complications and deaths are among the elderly and the very young. But our cases in this episode clearly demonstrate that anyone has the chance of being impacted by the flu and complications. One of the biggest challenges we face is that the number of vaccinated individuals tends to drop after less severe seasons, which we have faced since a spike in vaccinations associated with the H1N1 season of 2009 and 10. With less than half of all Americans getting the vaccine this year, there was a huge risk for exposures, infections, and spread. This year was especially difficult since the coverage for the predominant H3N2 strain of flu A for most of the season was only about 25 to 35%, meaning that even vaccinated individuals had less protection. However, I found that vaccinated individuals had less severe cases with shorter symptoms and lower risk of admission. Again, this was not absolute, and vaccinated individuals had admissions, complications, and even deaths, but at much lower rate than those that did not get the vaccine. Let's look at some of the facts about the flu vaccine. As we've already discussed, the overall coverage for this year was 25 to 60%, depending on the strain, even with numbers less than complete protection. It was still effective at preventing some cases and decreasing severity. The vaccine is our only preventive treatment for the seasonal flu. The vaccine comes in a few forms, with a quadrivalent injection, which has coverage against the 4 most predicted strains for the season. There's a nasal version known as the flu mist. It has not been recommended over the last 2 seasons, as they are trying to make it quadrivalent as well, and it has not provided adequate coverage compared to the injection. Young pediatric patients require 2 injections with their first vaccination to build their immune system for the season. Elderly patients have a stronger vaccination available due to their increased risk during the annual flu season. The flu vaccine is one of the safest vaccines available. There are very small risks of complications from the vaccine itself, but these are minuscule when compared to the risks of the infection the vaccine prevents. In fact, the vaccine significantly decreases some of the risks that were once blamed on the vaccine by anti-vaccine groups when compared to the general population. The flu vaccine decreases risks of complications, but also overall decreases your risks of death for the year following the vaccination. That's an overall decreased risk of death over the next year if you get the vaccine. Our goal with the vaccine is not just to protect ourselves, but also protecting those around us with increased risks and those that cannot get the vaccine. Herd immunity is a big contributor to the prevention and the spread of diseases, whether it be the flu or other vaccinated infections in our communities. When it comes to the annual flu season, there are several things to keep in mind when it comes to the infections, preventions, and treatments. As we have already discussed, the vaccine is the best plan for prevention. Other than the vaccine, good hygiene, cleaning surfaces, and masks during flu outbreaks are good for prevention as well. There is no effective treatments for the flu. Unlike bacteria that can benefit from antibiotics, the flu is a virus and there is no treatment that kills the virus effectively. There are some antiviral medications that are still recommended by the CDC, but research shows they only shorten the infection by a few hours and do not decrease the likelihood of admission to the hospitals, complications, or deaths. With minimal documented benefit, they tend to be expensive and also are associated with their own set of side effects and complications. The overall management once infected is through symptomatic interventions and management and medications. Many of the complications from the flu are associated with bacterial co-infections. The flu opens the door of the immune system, and other opportunistic infections can then invade. These are often referred to as superinfections, and with the flu will often involve pneumonia and sepsis. It is very important to get these evaluated and addressed early with appropriate antibiotics for the bacterial infection and other interventions as necessary for the person's condition. Once somebody is sick, it is very important to avoid further spread of the infection. This means avoiding work, large crowds, schools, and other areas where the flu can easily be spread. It's predicted that the flu can easily spread via respiratory droplets up to 6 to 10 feet. This doesn't even include the potential for contaminated surfaces. The 2017-18 flu season was especially rough, with tens of millions of cases, millions of ER visits and admissions, and thousands of deaths. As we have emerged from this season, another is just months away. We hope this episode will help us all understand the flu, its risks, and what we can do to help prevent further complications. Hopefully in the near future we will have more effective treatments and hopefully a universal vaccine. That's all the time we have for this episode of StantonMD. Thank you for tuning in. You can watch prior segments and episodes on the StantonMD.com page and our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can keep up with every episode of the show. You can also join the conversation on social media, like our Facebook page and follow along at EverydayMed on Twitter. Until next time, I'm Dr. Ryan Stanton, and this is StantonMD.